So hello everybody, and I hope we have sorted out the audio issues. So I would need to have a little bit of a confirmation of that before I start talking, if there is anybody there. So I hope that, oh, wow, great. So sorry everybody for that. I think it's either too early in the morning or too late in the evening. So we don't really understand why this happens, so I will start again. We have a little bit of delay, I mean almost 20 minutes, which is quite a lot, but we still have time to complete the presentation. So starting again, I would like to welcome everybody, and I hope this time the audio will stay as good as it is. I would like to say a few words about myself very briefly now. So within GUE, I'm an instructor, I'm instructor evaluator. But as well, I work for GUE on the board of directors, and I'm responsible for developing training programs for recreational curriculum. From my own diving career, I have started in '99, and I started teaching almost immediately, very quickly after I gained my scuba license. I became an instructor very early. And then for a very long time, I was teaching in Egypt, where I lived for over 10 years. And even though the topic of my talk is comparing or explaining GUE equipment configuration, I have been diving and teaching in the jacket style configuration for a very long time. So I can really speak from experience on how the equipment from my perspective as an educator and a diver as well works. So I will try as well to accommodate any questions if they will be coming, and I hope we will have a little bit more time. And even though we are maybe pressed for time, I will be trying to explain everything, every questions that you might have about it. So just to start, I would like to, and I hope you can see my presentation as well. So to start, I would like to show you what we are dealing with here. So first of all, most of you know already the traditional scuba diving jacket style BC, where it's more worn like a jacket, and it has a variety of different models, and it has variety of different colors. It has variety of different sizes, because most of the time you will get them in small, big, extra large kid sizes, which is a quite big benefit for them. But from my perspective, as a person who is teaching and diving, and I'm diving as well as a technical diver and a cave diver and a rebreather diver, this type of configuration has some disadvantages that if you are venturing into more advanced types of diving is not really applicable. So the configuration that I will be talking about now today is the one that I'm showing you now on screen, where you can see that the configuration is much more simplistic because it consists of few parts that I will be talking about very soon. It can be both applied by recreational divers and technical divers, and that you can see the configuration itself allows for a lot of streamlining, because it's just a very simple harness that can be adjusted to anybody's size, a wing, and of course the scuba regulator, which is a little bit different as well because it includes something that we call a long hose. So to discuss a little bit more about the equipment itself, the first distinguishing factor that we have there is something that we call a harness. And the harness is one piece of webbing that has few attachment points, and we have only 5 of those, and they have very specific usage that I would not like to talk through today because it's a little bit too detailed, I believe. One of the specific things of this on that equipment is as well that it does have a crotch strap, so a strap that goes between the diver's legs and connects to the front harness, allowing the equipment to sit really very snugly on the diver. The other advantage of the harness is that it can be practically adjusted to everyone. So it doesn't really have any sizing. You can adjust to exactly your size, so it will be very snugly fitting. It will be not moving on your back. And even if some people tell that, or might tell that, if you have one piece harness that only has one buckle around your waist, it might be very hard to put it on and off. But in fact, if the harness is really properly fitted, it's not heavy. You do not have any issues. And additionally to that, many of those systems, they have now adjustable harnesses, which still maintains the one piece, which is a big benefit because there is nothing that can break on this, nothing that can get loose, nothing that can get open by accident. So it's very robust from that perspective. The other main point on that equipment is a backplate. So is the thing that combines, that puts everything together, because if you imagine that is the backplate, on one side you will have the diver, and the other side you will have the rest of the equipment. So there will be the buoyancy source, which we call the wing, and then you will have the tank. And because of the robustness on the backplate and how it is attached to the diver, or to the tanks, to the diver, it's very robust. So the only thing that will be changing when you are switching equipment, or if you are switching the types of diving that you are doing, you will be switching the buoyancy source, so the wing itself, but the backplate will stay the same. So once adjusted to you, depending on the curriculums of the scuba diving that you are trying to do, so going from recreational diving to tech diving, to cave diving, to rebreather diving, you will be still using your own backplate with the same settings. So all of the habits that you will have, all of the muscle memory that you will develop while practicing with this will stay through all the career of your diving, which is a very good, which is a very big benefit for us, because our training is based a lot about standardization and about muscle memory. So if you develop that in the beginning, then you can carry it on with whatever dive types you might be willing to do. So the base is a harness, which does have a crotch strap that holds everything together, which is really important if you are thinking about really heavy gear, like, for instance, a rebreather or a twin set, and it does have a backplate. The other thing that comes with it, of course, is the buoyancy source, so the wing, which is behind the diver, and I will talk about a little bit the advantages a little bit later on, when you will see it a little bit better. And of course, then it comes with something that is very specific for GUI type of configuration. There is a regulator or a set of regulators, because it doesn't really depend either you are diving a single tank or a double tank. The set of regulators, in a sense, how it looks in the front from a user perspective, is exactly the same. So you will always have your long hose on your right side. You will always have the second backup regulator that we have here coming as well from the left side. You will as well have the SPG, like on all of the other equipment, but everything what you have in the front will be exactly the same. So, which brings me back to the standardization perspective, that whatever equipment or whatever dive type you are going to make, whatever you use as a user, so the regulators, where you will find your SPG, where you will find your inflator, how it will work, will be exactly the same. So whatever techniques or whatever skill you will learn in the beginning using that equipment, you will just bring it on. So I would like to show you, and I hope the video will play better than the previous ones, how we put the equipment on, because one of the specific things for that equipment is a long hose. And very often people get confused on how to use it. And then some people are, if you look at the diver that's using that equipment, some people think that the long hose is a little bit too long, because it's 2 meters long, and it is really quite long in that case. So they think it's impractical, or it will be hard to store. And then they as well wonder how the use of the equipment will look like. So if you look at the video, I will be putting the equipment on. So then now I'm reaching for the backup regulator, which will go around my neck. And sorry for the video playing really slow. So the technology is not on my side today. So the backup regulator normally comes first on the diver's neck. The next piece of the equipment that will be coming is the long hose. And as you can see, it's clipped to a D-ring that it's there for that purpose. Normally the divers will check in the longhose is not entangled with anything, because this is the piece of equipment that is being donated where you are sharing gas. And then it goes around the diver's neck and then into the diver's mouth. And of course here I'm not diving, so I'm clipping it off back to my right chest D-ring where it normally is, where it's not in use. And then the excess of the hose I will tuck under the harness. So it will be really nice and snugly fitting, and there is no risk of any entanglement. And then in case of donation, of course, the hose will be released, but this is something that the divers who are using this type of equipment are using or are training from the very beginning, so on the first course that they will do. So this was a little bit of the components that the equipment has. So we did talk about having a backplate that has a one-piece harness that contains as well a crotch strap to allow the diver really to have the equipment fitting snugly compared to the jacket-style BC on the diver's back. We do have a buoyancy source, which is the wing, as we call it. And then this goes behind diver's back, which means that there is nothing in the front of the diver that is constricting potentially the movement, and it doesn't really influence the comfort, because when you are diving a standard jacket style, you will have, if you inflate it on the surface, it will be a little bit restrictive because the BC is kind of inflating everywhere around you, as well in your stomach area, which can be a little bit compressive. And here in that case, all of the gas is going behind, which doesn't really have that effect. So you can have a big buoyancy source behind your back and you will not feel the tightness as it being inflated. So apart from the backplate harness and the wing, we do have the long hose configured regulator, and it can be used both for doubles and for a single tank. And a specific thing for this one is that we are using our primary source of breakdown, which is a long hose, which has 2 meters and 10 centimeters to be precise. And then we have a shorter backup regulator that is hanging on a diver's neck. I will be having another talk on some other day. I don't remember. I think it's tomorrow that when I will be talking about the twin set configuration, and then you might be able to see what the differences are and how the equipment is really there configured. But this equipment is, regardless whether you are diving in a single tank or you are diving in a double tank, is exactly the same. So here, what you can see is a diver who is using, and I hope you can see it. The video is dark because the diver is in a cave. So you can see that this person who is diving here is having, she's using basically the same type of equipment that I just explained. So it's a backplate, it's a long hose, it's a wing and a harness. But as you can see, she's carrying plenty of equipment and she's using a scooter and she's diving in a very, for some extreme environment, which is a cave. So the equipment is really very versatile. You can use it using your rebreather, as you can see on that photo now. It's exactly the same thing. The only difference that is there is, of course, the regulators are connected to 2 tanks. So you would need to have 2 first stages, but whatever is in the front and however it is used, regardless of the environment, the base configuration is exactly the same, which is exactly the thing that we are benefiting from as GUI divers, because it's standardized. So regardless of what type of equipment I'm diving, the equipment that I'm carrying, so the harness is fitting exactly the same and the regulators are configured in the same way. So all of the emergency procedures that we are learning are executed as well in the same way. So this is a huge benefit because the equipment is standardized. So now I have showed you a little bit of, let's say, very advanced dives. So we did have a cave dive, we see rebreather divers now here, but in fact, the configuration is very well suited for all recreational diving as well. So when I started to dive that type of equipment, I started to teach beginner divers, and I do that as well now, where I even do try dives with the same configuration. And I need to say that the equipment gets very good feedback. And of course, if you have a diver who starts, he will not know that there is another choice, or he will not know the other type of equipment, but it allows for very good fitting. it allows for a lot of freedom of movement because it's not restrictive. And of course, as a diver learns from the beginning, he will just learn whatever the instructor is explaining, meaning that he will just learn how to use a long hose and a backup regulator very easily. So from my perspective, the equipment configuration is, it does not really prevent me from being a recreational diver or for even starting to teach divers in the same way. So here what you can see is how streamlined the equipment, the configuration is, because what you don't even see on the diver is that he is carrying any type of equipment. So the harness is really tight. You can see that there is a crotch strap. The backup regulator is hanging on the diver's neck, and the long hose is clipped off. And it doesn't really matter what type of equipment you will be using. You can dive a rash guard, you can dive shorts, you can dive really very light fins in it because it will fit exactly the same. Or if you are going to a more advanced types of dives and you want to carry twin set, like the guy who now appeared on the screen is carrying, or diving in a dry suit, you will look and have the equipment in exactly the same places. So I'm coming back to that standardization, which is a kind of one of the key components of our equipment configuration. So now if I would compare it to a jacket style, and if I would be advancing through my education as a diver and making potentially more advanced types of dives, I would need to relearn certain techniques, because then I would need to switch from one type of equipment, which is a jacket style, to potentially something that the other technical divers would be using. So from that perspective of an organization that is involved in advanced diving, but as well is involved in science and is involved in a variety of different projects where we are expecting divers to do certain tasks, we do not like them to have the need to learn a new piece of equipment just because they switched to a different type of diving that they would like to pursue. So the equipment configuration have certain specific features. So first of all, as you have seen already, it's minimalistic. So normally we will not carry anything that it's not necessary. So you can see that the equipment doesn't have really any pockets. It does not have any additional things that are not needed. So as you can see on the guy here on the screen, there is nothing extra. He doesn't carry anything. And you might wonder, okay, so where the equipment that the diver needs to carry, like an SMB or a spare mask, should be going? And then you can see on this guy here, we are usually carrying a cargo shorts, which would allow you to carry any additional equipment. And if you are diving in a dry suit, then the equipment would go to the pockets that are normally already attached to the dry suit. So the carrying of the equipment is not really a very big case. So now, when we talk about minimalism, we not only mean that the equipment is very simple, but we as well mean that we do not carry too much additional equipment that is not really needed for a particular dive. The second feature for that equipment, that is really efficient. So it doesn't. So first of all, it just serves the purpose that it's supposed to be, but as well, because of its minimalism, it is very streamlined. So for me, the biggest difference when I switched was how easy it was for me to move around in the water. Previously, before I switched to that type of equipment, I was diving a quite big BC. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but the company was called Ziegel. And the jacket was called Rescue, because I did want, as an instructor, to have bigger lift, and I did want to have something that is back mounted, as we call it, which means the buoyancy source is in the diver's back. But the jacket was really very bulky, so it had big pockets. The wing was really big, so the difficulty of moving underwater was relatively huge. I didn't feel it until I changed to the different configuration, and then I felt like, wow, it's such a big difference, because it just allows me to glide through the water, because everything is compact. All of the hoses are snugly around the diver's body. You can see if we have any front images, that there is no hoses that are sticking out. So everything is adjusted to the diving posture, so it's really fitting snugly. So the easiness of maneuvering and swimming underwater is big. And the other thing is as well, if you are diving on entering any other more complex environments like inside caves or inside wrecks, this streamlining is as well extremely important, because you don't want to catch anything in a wreck, or you don't want to damage anything in a cave or destroy visibility, because your equipment is just not streamlined enough for that environment. The other benefit of that organization, of that equipment, is the third feature, which we refer as this equipment being modular or expandable, which means that if you are progressing through your education, or if you are entering more advanced forms of diving, you will be only adding equipment and you will not be changing equipment. And this is coming back to the statement that I had in the beginning, when I said that whatever you learn in the beginning will stay with you through all of the career when you are using this type of equipment, because you might only switch the wing, so the buoyancy source that is behind the diver, because if you are diving bigger tanks or if you are diving heavier equipment, you will need to have more lift capacity in those. You will only add equipment, like for instance stages. So if we come back to the image of the tiny girl in a cave, you can see that she is carrying plenty of gear, but the base configuration is the same. So she can carry additional stages, she can carry lights, she can use a scooter, but all of the base configuration is the same. So she is just adding on, or depending on the type of dives she will be doing, she will be removing stuff from her equipment, and this what we would call an expandability or modularity of that equipment. So for me, the biggest benefits as an educator using this equipment and as well as a diver is the first thing is the standardization. So all of the divers that we are training with NGOE, they will be trained with exactly the same type of configuration. So all of the instructor will teach the same emergency procedures like gas sharing. All of the instructors will teach the same way of assembling that equipment. The hoses length will be the same. There might be slight differences if you are using a twin set or a single tank, but generally all of the things that the divers will be learning everywhere will be exactly the same. So this brings as well the very big advantage of having such equipment, because it's not only for practical reasons for the user itself, but as well for the team members that the divers is diving with. Because if all of the team members on a project or more complex dive, or even on an easy recreational dive, will carry exactly the same type of equipment, and we are not talking here about brands, because it can be a variety of different equipment, because this type of equipment is produced by many manufacturers nowadays. So the benefit will be that they will know exactly what equipment their teammate is carrying, because then my teammate will be a mirror image of me. So his emergency regulator, so the regulator that is being donated, will be in the same place. His own alternative gas source will be in the same place. It will be configured in exactly the same way. It goes even to that extent that if we are carrying things in the pockets, we are carrying the same things in the same pockets. So then we can use this and we know what the other divers will have, which makes even, for sure, it makes project dives and more complicated dives much more easier from that perspective, because I do not need to learn how to use my equipment and learn how my team's equipment is working with. But it works really very well as well for recreational divers, because it makes their life, from our perspective as an organization, much easier, because wherever they go, wherever they rent this type of equipment, so GE configured equipment, they will rent exactly the same type of configuration. So there as well, their familiarity with the equipment will make their dives a little bit easier and a little bit more fun in the end, because this is what we are generally willing to do. So with this, I would like to finish the main part of my presentation. What I would like to encourage you to do, because on the show, we do have an offer on our booth. So one thing is that there is quite detailed video on our streaming channel called GUI TV, and it's a video that compares the wing style configuration to a jacket style configuration. And now, if you go to the GUI booth here on Scuba.Digital, you will find a voucher that will allow you to have 1 month free access to GUI TV. So you will have ability to see that video, or you can then contact us with some other questions. I will stay for a while on our booth now when I finish, so I can answer any questions that you might have, so you can come and visit us there. As well, what I would like to encourage you to do is to check our YouTube channel, because we have relaunched it, and then quite soon we will have there as well an equipment video called in a series that we call Versus Monday, where we will have comparison of that sort as well. I'm not sure when exactly we will be releasing that video, but if you check on us frequently on YouTube, so Global Underwater Explorers YouTube channel, you will find this comparison as well, plus some other comparisons that we are doing with some other pieces of equipment, like, for instance, fins, which is as well a little bit of a different animal if we are talking about this type of configuration. So I think I have delayed all of you enough, and I think I am already on 25 minutes of my talk. So if there are any questions from the stage, then I'm happy to answer those. And if not, then I will let my host to finish the talk. And then I will be at the GUI booth for a while, and then answering any questions that you would like to have. So let us hang out for a minute and then see if there was anybody that left after our challenges with the audio. And if there are no questions from the audience, then I think we can finish. And if there will be anybody in the GUI booth now, I can answer some questions. Or if you go to the booth, just get the voucher for the GUI TV and then find our jacket style versus BC style video, which is around 30 minutes, but it's a little bit more detailed and it touches on a little bit different topics. And otherwise, thank you very much for listening. And I will see you with less technical problems tomorrow.
All right, Dorota, that was excellent. I personally really like the philosophy of it being minimalistic and efficient. That I find that really appealing.
Yeah, so, it's really convenient. Otherwise, I would not be diving that.
Yeah. So we did have some problems starting the talk, but I think it was worth it in the end. Thanks a lot for that.